All right, we've done it. We're live.
Nice. Cool. I didn't know you were doing that. That's awesome.
No, that's not me.
Oh, is it? I didn't know it. I think that's great.
Or, I don't know. I thought it was.
I like this stuff because people
Looks like a city laptop.
and like I like it because the people that, you know.
I think it's yours.
Oh.
Okay, that's hers. We
I
were
work,
wondering
for, I,
who's
work, I
live.
work for the city. I just wondered if it was one of ours.
Oh no! We're just making
My
we're
fault.
live streaming.
Sure.
We told
I
our
love that.
supporters we're live streaming.
What's your name?
Amanda.
I'm AJ Melvin. I'm the city attorney.
Oh, excellent! Great to meet you. Yeah.
I walked, so there was confusion because I walked in front of it and I saw my hand. I was like, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So I was trying to see it.
No.
That's your tech stuff.
Oh, great. That's great.
Well, for the past about year and a half,
I was appointed by Mayor Scott Stevens as a Democrat. He's a Republican.
Now you just pick it up.
Yeah. Born and raised. I actually went to Market School.
Very cool.
So we might feel it.
Cool, yeah. I just went my old school.
Originally, it was going to be. There was a good chance that I would go.
I mean, the community is he actually there, so there's like a big group for kids right there, so it's not like they were.
I don't personally know him, but I'm pretty sure. I know that. The big old building.
It is. Yeah, I've been working with Blue
Their community is funding.
Yeah, no, I'm talking to those folks too. Yeah, I'm really excited to put on the colors. Before this project was
The man, the legend.
which was being like walking around that old bar. Just for the stuff I did to nobody from the housing.
Oh, my uncle. I came back here. I know what you're talking about.
The fact that they came here around and negotiated their public participation, the fact that their contract
Oh yeah, check this out. Pan American.
I think they're pulling over on me. I move around. I don't really get to sit.
I'm excited to see this presentation because I didn't see the original.
It was a lot better than I think.
showing up with saving houses.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no, there was a structure that exists in the property just north of the property. We bought it for the next so we were able to
I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm good gentleman over there. Yeah, AJ Munn. Nice to meet you.
How are you? I'm doing well, thank you.
Get that one out. Take it. This is fun. Here. We'll give it up. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody coming tonight? Glad everybody can make it out tonight. I'm Mayor Steve. We have a presentation tonight. I appreciate everybody's concern for Parker School, and that's why we're hosting it at Parker School, so everybody recognizes the importance of the beauty of this building and what the school really means and what the school has meant. And that is not taken lightly, and we recognize this is an emotional topic, and it's emotional to us as well. And I don't know that we all are on the same page and concurring about every bit of it, but these are solutions that we have to try to look at from a taxpayer's and a tax provider's point of view. And all I ask for is open minds, and I'll give you kind of an overview of what the agenda is going to be tonight. Ms. Silman represents this District 2, and so she'll make some also welcoming remarks. Then we'll have a presentation of the only RFP that we received for this building. They'll make their presentation up there. Afterward, which will allow questions for their presentation to kindly come to the mic, or we'll retort that question back so everybody can hear it properly, and then they'll respond to what questions they can answer. And then the other questions that can't be answered will be on a document by next Friday, will be posted online. There's links on that poster board right there you can link to, or just go to our website and find Parker School. It's all on there. The contacts for the alderpersons, which some of them are here, thank you for coming, so you can express your concerns directly. My contact number is there, so we'll accept every one of those emails, phone calls, everyone will be answered. we'll put the questions that you have and some other ones that have come up. You know, Legislator Hargan brought up a good question now. We'll make sure that that's answered on those website, and we'll make sure that we do everything we can to try to make this, get all the answers and the misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation. You know, this is not an open house, so we're going to stay to the gym. The building really is safe and clear to be through the building, so I appreciate you staying here. If you really have to use the restroom, we did open one up around the corner if you have to do that, but please contain to those areas. And then if anything, in the event of anything happening, our exit doors are behind you, over here, and the way you came in. So we should have plenty of egress as well. So again, we really appreciate you coming here tonight with open minds and trying to hear what the presentation is about, what it's about, and then giving us your comments. If you feel uncomfortable about doing it publicly, asking your questions, which is what it's about, we're just trying to get questions right now. That's great. You can get them afterwards. I'll stick around. There'll be other persons who will stick around as well, that you can have a one-on-one conversation with it, express your concerns, because we want to do it. That's why we're here. This is our neighborhood as well. You know, I lived on Madison Street for many years, and there's a lot of heart-wrenching stuff. I want it to just be a school, but that's not our option anymore. So we need to register that and recognize any options that we can have at this point. So with that, I'll give the floor to Ms. Silman, who is a representative for the 2nd District.
Thank you, Mayor Steve. So I'm Katie Silliman, and I'm the 2nd Ward alderperson or council member. And I was on the original committee when we were trying to put 2 daycare entities, originally 3, into this building, and that would have been ideal. I think a lot of us agree, and there was a lot of disappointment over that, but it just didn't work, especially after COVID. I'm sure you can appreciate that COVID did a number on a lot of budgets and staffing, brought up a lot of issues with those, and so it just wasn't going to work. And so what I want you to know about this proposal is it is not a done deal. It is a proposal being presented to you in the hopes that you are won over the way I was won over. I think that this is an excellent business. Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services, they've been in business a long time. They've done this for other communities. Their whole soul, the whole soul of their enterprise is about sustaining and building community. So they want to hear from you. They want to hear how you want this building to look. I, for one, would love a community room in the building. A place where we could meet and have ward meetings. That would be great. So I hope that you will give them your full attention and feel free to ask questions. And I'll turn it over to Lynn Trunane. She is the director of their real estate services.
Well, thanks for coming out, everybody. As has been said, we responded to a request for proposals that was put out by the city. We're just suggesting that if we had the opportunity, this is something that we would suggest to do with the building, something that we've done with other similar buildings, and it's worked out very well. And we did put together a little PowerPoint that we can run through to explain our proposal. Was community revitalization. At that time in Ithaca's history, there was a lot of physical deterioration of buildings. There were people were moving out to the suburbs. People were having trouble getting loans in the city to repair their buildings. Incomes were lower, and so INHS was created with the idea of reversing that decline. And they started off by renovating homes for individual homeowners at low interest rate loans. Then they moved into purchasing the worst deteriorated house on a block, rehabbing that, and owning it as a rental unit. And INHS's portfolio of of rental properties started to grow at that point. Currently, we now develop larger projects as well as still doing those same programs that we used to do. We still have homeowner repair, we still have lending programs for people who are buying their first home. We still own properties in Ithaca that we manage, and we have expanded our service area out to Tompkins and the 6 surrounding counties. So Portland is one of the areas that we now serve. Go ahead to the next slide.
Excuse me, can you speak up a little bit? A lot.
Okay, is this good? Okay. All right, so about INHS, we have participated in the development of over 1,200 units of housing, but some of those are now owned by partners who we developed with in the early years. In recent years, we own and develop and maintain our own properties, and we do not transfer those to anyone else. Once we develop a property, we continue to own it, and we'll own it for 50 years. That's the regulatory period that the funding that we use subjects our properties to a 50-year regulatory period. So once we are in it, we are in it. Okay. So we now own and manage, whoops, go back. A total of 561 residential units and 13 commercial spaces in our 7-county area. Included in that group of properties are 2 former school buildings that we have renovated into residential apartments, and we'll be starting the renovation of a 3rd school this summer. That's up in the village of Cayuga. That will also be residential apartments. We have extensive experience in historic preservation, so when we look at an existing building, what we want to do is preserve that building, rehab it as needed. We want to keep the historic character of the building, and we want to make it useful to the community again. So when we come to a school that where population has declined or population has moved to other areas, or for whatever reason the school has lost its enrollment and had to be closed as a school, that's a very prominent building in the neighborhood, and we recognize that, and we want to honor that history of the building and retain the appearance of the building. All of our projects are third-party certified to meet stringent sustainability requirements. They're LEED Gold, LEED Platinum. There are multiple different third-party green building programs that we participate in, and every one of our projects, whether it's new construction or rehabilitation, is certified as a sustainable building. So I brought just some slides of some previous projects we've done. This is building the Henry St. John School. It's located in Ithaca. It's right next to our main office. We purchased the building in 1983 when it was closed as a school. There are now 12 residential apartments in the upper floors and 5 commercial spaces in the lower kind of daylight basement floor. That building's listed on the local, state, and national registers of historic places, so the renovation was in keeping with those requirements of historic building. Founders Way is our most recent project. It just recently finished leasing up. That's also located in Ithaca. This was a former parochial school, and it was closed for lack of enrollment. Again, we acquired it in 2019. There were 2 wings on the building, one of which was in disrepair and had to be demolished, the smaller wing, but the wing that could be preserved, we adaptively reused for apartments. On that site, there was also a historic Greek Revival house, built about 1850, which we again restored for 2 residential units. And there was also a gymnasium attached that was sort of a wing off the building, which we detached from the building. The city was interested in owning that, so we sold it to the city for youth programming, and they're renovating the gym right now for that program. This is another large project that we did. It was not an existing building that could be retained. It was a big box grocery store in the middle of a residential neighborhood surrounded by a deteriorated parking lot. So we removed that grocery store and we built the townhomes that you can see here and the multifamily building at the back. There's 59 residential units there. This is right next to Cascadilla Creek in Ithaca. And if you can see at the right, there's an an asphalt path. That was previously a city street. It was in disrepair, and we worked with the city to create a walking and biking path along the creek side there, which is open to the public. It has benches, and it's just a nice amenity for the neighborhood. And we feel like this is a big improvement to the residential character of that neighborhood. Zoom is disconnected, so we're getting them back online before we start again.
This is also being recorded, and it will be posted on the city website, okay?
As well as the presentation.
Yeah.
Roger Langer, who's our architect, and Tony Darpino, who's with the contractor who would be working on the project.
announcements. We do have some N95 masks for anybody who needs them if we keep continuing with this smog thing and the smog for the technical difficulty. But seriously, if anybody needs that or have relatives that need it, please contact my office. The number's there. We'll make sure you get some. Access to Independence also is distributing them, so if that's helpful to anybody as well. So, but anything we can do that. But stay safe when it's, especially yesterday. Today's a lot better, so otherwise we would cancel out. Keep moving on. Thank you.
Very boring.
Okay, so I'm told we're gonna go ahead, we're recording this, by voice. The Zoom is apparently not working currently and continuing to not work, but we'll go ahead. So, in the Teasdale Hancock project, there's also a daycare. I wanted to mention that we have included daycare in several of our projects. There's an early Head Start child care facility on the first floor. And there's a nonprofit science education facility also on the first floor that serves school-aged youth. Yes.
Since the Zoom isn't working, anybody who's listening could go to their website, INHS website, and see the same building she's talking about. Feel free to look at their website, check it all out.
And I do have my cards out on the table there that has our website on it.
Do you want my hotspot for your Zoom?
I think they've been trying that. Doesn't seem to be working for some reason. All right, this is another project of ours, Glen Lakes Apartments in Watkins Glen. We included this one. It's new construction, but it does have a 7,000 square foot childcare center on the first floor of that project as well. We like including childcare when we can. The people who live in our buildings appreciate having childcare close by, definitely. For this particular project, we pulled out what we think are the primary goals of the project: preserving and reusing an important and cherished community asset in the building that we're in right now, expanding and improving the quality of the local rental housing stock, increasing the local tax base. The project will pay taxes. Job creation during construction. Tony can talk a little bit more about job fairs that they do to hire local people during construction for construction work. And again, if feasible, we're happy to include a child care component. We did talk to the YWCA and CAPCO to see whether they had any continued interest in being in the project. They are unsure at this time. It doesn't seem to be financially feasible for the Y, although they're keeping the door open to that conversation. And CAPCO is interested in the location for sure if they can fit it into their pipeline, it sounded like. So those conversations will be ongoing. If that's a possibility, we're happy to accommodate it. So for this project, we've laid out sort of some schematic sketches of the building just to see how many affordable units we might be able to fit in. Looks like between 44 and 51, depending on the size of the unit and whether we make any changes at all to the footprint of the building. On the smaller end of the spectrum there, we would not change the exterior of the building in any way. In the larger end of the spectrum there, we would probably have to make a small bump out on the building, adding, I think it was 6 more or 5 more units at each floor for 2 floors. But it's not clear yet whether that's going to be necessary. It's sort of a financial decision when we lay out the pro forma to see what the rents will support in terms of the financing for the building. And then obviously if there were a child care included, there would be fewer units because we would need some space in the building for the child care. We're planning on studios, 1-bedrooms and 2-bedroom apartments. 15% of the units would be set aside for people who have an intellectual or a developmental disability, and we would be working with our partner, the Racker Center, on those units. They provide services to that population, and they work in Cortland, and they've identified a need for about 10 units. We think we can put about 7 at this building. Depends on, it would be 15% of the total, however many that comes out to. Rent levels here would be set at a level that's affordable to households who earn between 50 and 60% of the area median income. Now, that varies every year. The median income changes, so these are not hard and fast numbers, but currently that would be roughly between $25,000 for a single person to $61,000 for a four-person household. And rent in this type of project is based on both the unit size and the household income. So in this type of project, it's not a one-bedroom always costs $1,000. It's a one-bedroom costs 30% of your income, depending on what that income is. And in this case, looking at the pro forma for the smallest unit with the smallest household, that would range from about $590 up to the largest unit with the largest household at $1,450. And again, that's subject to change. I just wanted to give you a general idea because people usually have that question. So who will we serve? So I went to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and I pulled up some numbers about jobs in the Cortland area that pay the amount of money that you would need to live in these apartments. So these are income limited apartments. They're serving people who are not able to compete on the open market for housing. Or if they do have housing on the open market, it takes up an inordinate share of their income. So if you were working in Cortland as a cashier, home health aide, a nursing assistant, a cook, a janitor, dishwasher, child care worker, retail salesperson, receptionist, dental assistant, or wait person, you would qualify to live in this apartment.
If you're disabled.
And if you're disabled, if you're on a fixed income, you definitely would, yes. I know that there's a lot of questions about Section 8. Section 8 is a source of income, and people who make less than 50% of the area median income are entitled to apply for Section 8, whether they're working or whether they're disabled and not working. It is illegal in New York to discriminate on the basis of the source of income. We cannot say that it's impossible for someone with Section 8 to live here. It is possible. It is definitely possible because that's a source of income. They could be perfectly qualified to live here and have that as part of their income. We do background checks on anyone who's going to be living in our apartments, and everyone who moves into this building has to meet the same requirements regardless of their source of income. So anticipated sources of financing. In order to make this project affordable, we have to have subsidy
Can
from...
you go back to the screening process?
Uh,
You said there's a screening process?
Sure, could we do that in questions afterwards? Because it's often a topic people want to get into some detail on. Would that be all right?
Sure.
Okay, great. Now we're almost done anyway. So, as I was saying, in order to make the project affordable, we have to have subsidized loans from the state, and we have low-income housing tax credits that are allocated by the state. Those are sold, and equity comes into the project, and that's how the project is built. We wouldn't be able to have lower rents if we were just taking out a commercial loan from a bank to do the project. So we're anticipating that we'll get a subsidized loan from the New York State Housing Trust Fund, an allocation of low-income housing tax credits. The city of Cortland already got $2 million from the Restore program, which is fantastic. If there were a child care, there's a source that New York State has called the Community Investment Fund that is specifically for that type of activity near a project that has income-limited housing. And then for the units that will be occupied by people with a developmental disability, there's a specific source of funding that Office of People for People with Developmental Disabilities has, so we would apply for those funds as well. We want to include the community in plans for any project that we develop. All the projects that I showed previously had significant community engagement. We want to come to you and say, here's what we're thinking, get your feedback and say, well, we don't like this, what about that? And see if we can incorporate that into our project. So we would plan on having 3 community engagement sessions so that we can get input on our plans as they're developing. we, depending on how the funding goes, we're assuming that we'll be able to, if we're selected, we would be able to acquire the building in early fall of next year, start construction and have our job fair later in the fall, and then complete the project in the winter of 2025. So, I don't know if Tony or Roger, do you have anything that you want to add at this point, or should we just open up for questions? Okay. All right. Shall we start with the screening question?
Sure.
So, New York State does not allow us to blanket exclude groups of people. So we have to give, well, we can exclude anyone who's been convicted of, who is on a lifetime registry for a sexual offense. They are excluded. Anyone who's been convicted of the manufacture of methamphetamine is excluded. Everyone else, we have to look at their individual application, their individual circumstances, and then go through, are they going to be a good tenant? Are they going to be able to pay the rent? And the screening process takes about a month, and then are they income qualified, obviously, to live in the building? So they have to submit information about their income, and we evaluate it to see whether it falls in that, below that upper limit, but still gives them enough to be able to afford the unit.
Okay.
Is it limited to the city of Portland residents?
It is not. But in our experience, generally, it's people from the local area who tend to move into our projects when we open them. We don't have a lot of people coming from far away, but it's not limited.
You would think that the Section 8 is actually a source of income. It is not. The Section 8 is where the landlord would get a portion of the rent. The housing authority would pay, or whoever's in charge of that would get a portion of the rent. So it's not necessarily a source of income. But on the paperwork, it indicated that there was no Section 8.
Well, we don't allocate Section 8, we are just a landlord. And Section 8 provides a rental subsidy in the form of a housing voucher.
The housing authority.
Yeah, just for everyone's benefit. So that that portion of their rent is paid by Section 8, and then they pay a portion of their rent with whatever other source of income that they have. It's not legal for us to say you can't live here because you have Section 8.
So if they're on Section 8, do they have to have a job, or can they just be on Section 8?
They can just be on Section 8.
You could be disabled, you could be living on, Social Security. Section 8 is based on, if you want to answer the question, Section 8 is based on your income level.
Based on your income level, yes. And it is the lower portion of the scale for income. You could be disabled, you could not have any income and still get Section 8.
And you can be working and have Section 8 as well.
Yes, you can work.
Yeah.
You can work.
Blue jacket?
Yeah. You said in your presentation that this would include increasing property taxes.
No, we would be paying property taxes. We want to increase the tax base.
Okay. Well, you're a charitable not-for-profit. Title 18 in New York says no.
No. When a project's developed using low-income housing tax credits, there's a taxable entity that's formed to own that. It'll be an LLC that pays taxes. It pays it at an adjusted rate because it's affordable housing, but we do pay taxes, yes.
So would our taxes go up?
No. Not because of us. I mean, they may go up for some other reason that I'm not aware of. But no. The great black story.
So what are your checks and balances once you vet these tenants as to keeping them on status quo? So yes, they answered the questions correctly, they don't have a background check, but that's not stopping them from moving on. Or it's not stopping them from bringing in unsavory behaviors. I mean, you have someone who's staying here, making sure everything's status quo.
Yes, we will have a property manager on site from 9 to 5, 5 days a week during business hours, obviously. On off hours, we have an emergency line that anyone can call. It's an emergency maintenance line for people who live here as well. If there's a lease violation, they all have to sign a lease, which says these are the expectations of your living here. If there's a lease violation, they get a warning. If there's a second lease violation, and or the first one if it's serious, they will get evicted. I don't know how to keep track of everybody equally here. I think there's someone over here who is waiting a little while. Yes.
I have a quick question, and then your answer, I have a quick follow-up. Has your organization ever worked with community land trusts? In other words, where the land is owned by you, but the building is owned by community, individuals, etc.?
We actually have a community housing trust ourselves, where this is our for sale product, where we own the ground under the building and we sell the building to a homeowner. In a tax credit project, the underlying land has to be owned by a housing development fund corporation so that we don't have to pay taxes on during construction, which keeps the project more affordable. So that's the structure. The HDFC owns the land, and then there's a nominee agreement or a long-term lease with the LLC that owns the improvement.
So now, this may be after that's another.
Okay.
Is housing the only option for a land trade, or could a school, for instance, be part of a? We have childcare, so could a school be owned by a community and be part of a land trust?
I do not know the answer to that question.
That would be good. And the follow-up that I was going to ask before is, once you engage in this project, my understanding is you'd be buying the land, the property, and then it would be in your care for 50 years.
50 years. Yes. So INHS would be, again, the structure is a little convoluted, but the HDFC, INHS would be the sole member of the HDFC and the managing member of the LLC. So we are the entity that provides all the guarantees, that does the property management. We're the ones who are responsible for it for that long term, yes. Mm-hmm.
Kind of follow up with his. Our kids in this school district are suffering. The schools are overcrowded. There's not enough resources and support for teachers, staff, parents, or the kids. ADHD, autism, auditory processing, they're at an all-time high. There's a 2-year wait list into any ADHD autism clinic. Why can't this be turned into something for kids with ADHD or autism or a behavior developmental center to help them transition the process into school? You say you want to help our community? That's what our community needs. We need help for our children.
Okay.
Our kids, we're failing our kids. We're failing them.
I hear you. So rebuild housing, but if someone
When the
else
folks
wants,
around here agree with me, our students are in need. And I'm advocating, my son is ADHD, and there are no resources for him. None. And he's struggling, he's suffering. And I'm sorry.
Sounds like it's really painful as you as a parent to experience and to witness and not be able to get those services.
And there's no resources in the community to help our kids, and he's not the only one.
These guys aren't.
No, but we are here as a community, and as a community, I think we should decide on what we do with our schools.
And you can.
We can, and that's why I'm here voicing my opinion.
Right now, you're here to listen to their proposal.
Well, I'm here so everyone can listen to me.
If you can find an entity who wants to put in a proposal to do what you're thinking of, that would be grand. We would listen to them. But right now,
The mayor actually has it in his inbox, a 70-page proposal.
Why can't the school district take it back and do it?
ask them.
We
Ask
have.
them.
The teacher union went there in February begging for support, and they got nothing.
Well, right now, we're talking about this.
Okay, well, I'm talking about what our community needs. We're here for our community, and our kids are our community. They're the future of Portland.
We have other people who want to ask these people questions.
in the greatest sympathy.
This is because this is Portland. After the project finished and you start running, 5 years down the road, you can't fill the apartments. What happens to them now?
We have a market study done before we develop any property, and our investors and our funders require that it shows significant need so that there's not doubt that it will be filled. I can't answer what will happen 50 years down the road because a market study can't look that far. But in our experience thus far, we have long wait lists at all of our projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the daycare would fuel the economy.
Yeah.
How will you determine if childcare is feasible? You brought it up as an option, but you didn't really go into detail as to what makes it feasible.
that's really up to the providers to determine whether it's financially feasible for them to operate a childcare here. What we would do is develop the space for them.
So you
And-
can decide, and then they can take it or leave it?
No, in a conversation with a childcare provider who wants to occupy a space, we can build a space for them, but we do not operate childcare. So there has to be someone who wants to operate a childcare in this location.
So would they be required to rent it? Like,
It
would
would-
they pay you money to run the daycare there?
Correct, but it's a below market rent. In Ithaca, we're renting for, I think, $6 a square foot.
This is not Ithaca.
Uh,
This is not Ithaca.
No, I absolutely understand that. I'm just giving you a sense of it's well below market. So I don't know what market rent for commercial spaces in Portland, but it would be well below market. Otherwise, it wouldn't be financially feasible for
And
them.
I'm curious, I'll have your attention. I've heard that the zoning approval has not even been tiptoed at, nor approval from the county. Can you elaborate more about your process of gaining approval to actually pull this project off?
Sure. If we were selected. That's not great. I'll try and talk loudly. I'll abandon the mic. So if we were selected to advance our proposal, we would meet with the city and with the county. The zoning here right now does not allow multifamily, but it allows multifamily with a special use permit. So the process would be to apply for that special use permit and go through, I assume you have site plan review, to go through all the local approvals to sign up on the project. And typically that takes 3 months in my experience. I don't know in Portland if it takes less time or more time, but we're prepared for that process.
Thank you.
Sure.
You might not be able to answer this, but I imagine our mayor can. What happened to all of the grant funding that was supposed to be used to renovate the school?
It was not existent. It was alive. It was not existent.
Yeah, there's a couple
Last
funding
administration.
sources that were based on if the project started moving forward. So until there was plans, it was done, then it would be done. But there was nothing that was substantive that was there as grants before.
I've heard from multiple sources that Anna Kellis has verified that over $1 million exists to renovate for childcare. Barbara Lifton had it earmarked, and it is dedicated to the Cortland community provided.
That is correct.
We can get whatever we need to for childcare if we get a provider to help do it. We get a provider to fill the building, we'll come up with a way to fund it. That's the key. So we have no trouble getting the funding.
So there is $1 million for
We have $2 million
childcare.
right now that can be used for childcare that's there, that's better than what the grants were before already for this building, to restore this building, if that's what that's for. Because the last thing we would want to see is this building go down. So that's $2 million we've got, which is better than anything we had before, or anything we want to restore the building. That's an important part. And if it's to help other needy situations, other ways that we can do it, that's where we'll go.
Great, thank you.
My question is similar, so if I could just ask this of your office. It goes back to request for proposals. So the city received one response to the RFP that went out. So my question is related to that RFP. Was the RFP written such that it was looking for a specific type of entity to occupy, to purchase this building, for example, for housing, because the only response was for housing. So how was it, so you're shaking your head, so how was it written? I mean, is it written so that other entities could then apply, or?
Yeah, it was a community-based outreach, and it's online in its entirety to read it, but it was open-ended. It was not specified in any towards any direction. Everything was open, and we consider it and bring hopefully another group right after this to bring in to talk about something better.
It could be a daycare, for example, if an entity responded. Yes. Oh, absolutely. All right, thank you.
If you go to the website that's listed on the agenda there, you'll find the RFP itself as well as other documents.
I have a question. How will this project benefit our
perspective, there's a building that's not being used as a community asset at the moment. Obviously, there's difference of opinion about what should go in there, but housing is one option. It could bring a vacant building back into service. My reading of your comprehensive plan, you do have a need for higher quality rental housing, which we feel we would bring. It takes a building that's currently not paying taxes and brings it onto the tax rolls to pay taxes. We feel like that's benefit. We would be providing housing for people in your community right now who are income burdened by housing that they can't afford. So I think
And
those
other
are,
counties as well.
and other counties as well.
And it also opens up, if they move from their house into this building, it opens up their house to get repurposed. Somebody, first-time home buyer, could move into that house. So it kind of can build your tax basis.
Mr. Harmon, go ahead.
So, thank you, Mayor Steve. As a member of the original task force that was tapped by Mayor Tobin to find a solution, one of the things that the task force worked through and why we proposed child care and why we advocated strongly for the city to purchase the building was the fact that there were over $3 million in DASNY bonds tied to this building that at the time we had understood if it was sold to an entity other than the city would be immediate burden, pay due, right then and there to the taxpayers of the city of Portland. So the question, and you may not have an answer to this tonight, this bond law is very convoluted, but the question really remains, if we sell this to another entity, will the taxpayers be burdened with the $3 million in bonds due immediately upon the sale? Or will they be picking up the bond and paying the $3 million, or will there be a payment plan put out? Because that was a key part of the decision-making process of the original task force.
Yes, understood. And we appreciate the members of the task force. There's numerous of you here and all your work that you did too on that. We appreciate that. We have been in contact with DASNY before we put our RFP out to make sure that what we were presenting would be acceptable. And we had met with council numerous times to talk about different ways to utilize the building and what it would be and how they would release that. They have followed suit with similar to this just recently in Virgil. They're releasing they were in the same task with the shutting down of that school, which again was done by the school district. So that has been done there as well. Good question. Yes, you go.
This is probably not going to be a very popular statement, but it seems to be discrimination against Section 8. I've had nothing to do with Section 8. You're going to have an on-site manager. If there's problems with Section 8, I would think you could boot them out. That's number one. Number two, we've got another school on the other side of town, Pomeroy School, that closed a number of years ago, and there's now housing in there. I don't know who owns it or whatever, but I drive by it often. Doesn't seem to be any problems. I'm thanking your firm for having the willingness to come into our community and have this project. I would hope that the city will do everything in their power to help you as much as they can. And I personally want to thank you.
But I'm not helping our children.
Let's go in order there. We got somebody back there. Thank you. In the back of the slide, yes.
Thank you. So, with the $2 million, and then the $1.1 million that former attorney President Barbara Weston secured from Oakland County, can you view both the $2 million and the $1.1 million, or is it one of the other? I think the $2 million is better than the $1.1 million that was secured. Can you use both?
And I would have to talk to the assembly member, but I would assume if it was utilized for that purpose, because I think that was a carryover from her predecessor at 1.1, that's my understanding. So I think it had to be utilized for that, but again, there's other avenues that we could make that happen. If we have somebody that's a licensed daycare provider who could utilize it and renovate the whole thing, that's the ultimate goal. That was the ultimate design and purpose of many other ideas of needs in the community that are children-based, from vision, hearing, speech impediments. There's all those needs, and we want to make sure we recognize that. So
Teachers, I tried to get it recognized at the school district. They've gone to the board and it fell organized. My daughter's teacher told me it's gonna take parents to start standing up for our kids and going to the school board and letting them know that we want this school for our kids.
So I encourage that to happen.
I encourage everyone to do
with the
that.
school board. If there's somebody with their hands, okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm not a parent, but, piggybacking off what you said, one of the things that I noticed in my research is that 61% of the people that live in this town have very little college education on down. And only 22% of those have any college education at all. So the majority of the people that live in this town are lacking in education. It does seem like this project is just going to support more lower income, uneducated. If this was more like what this woman is talking about, where it's a daycare type facility, there's an opportunity for good paying jobs, professional jobs to come in here and help these children. So it's almost a twofold thing to start bringing in better paying jobs. And another thing in this community, women are paid almost 50% less than the men in this community. And it really is the women that are the motivators, the drivers to have, quality of family life here. And it's also a fact that women, single women homeowners, they outnumber single men homeowners. So even among the single women, they're still participating and putting their dollars into homeownership into this community. And homeownership in this community, by the way, is only 47%. 53% is rents.
I agree with your first part of the statements. It's statistics I can't answer, but I appreciate that information. Yes.
If we have 40+ units, what about parking?
We did lay out parking so that it fits entirely on site with, it's 1.5 units per, 1.5 parking spaces per unit are required under the zoning code, and we laid that out on site, and it does fit on the site.
So you have to take the parking lot.
No, we have our sketch it's just a sketch, but we are preserving the park. We would have to add some parking, that comes up sort of in the T next to the building this direction. Yeah, and then this obviously remains on the other side where there's existing parking. We do have a sketch of that layout, which we can circulate.
And that's part of the RFP?
Yes, it is. It's in the RFP, so it's already
The
online.
web address on that front sheet, you can read the RFP in its entirety and see those sketches.
So you say 1.5 parking spaces, I'm not sure I understand that.
That's what the zoning code requires for a residential and a multifamily building is 1.5 spaces per unit in the building. So if you had 40 units, it would be 60 units of parking. That's what's required by zoning code in your current zoning code.
It doesn't mean that one apartment would have 1.5 spaces.
There wouldn't be assigned parking. It's just the total number of units. It sort of accounts for some people having 2 in a household and some only having 1.
What about garbage?
Yeah, so we would have a trash.
I have a question you're ignoring.
I'm sorry. We'll take yours in next. There will be a trash compactor. Each floor has a trash room on it with a chute. Comes down the trash compactor and gets collected over here on this side. Yes, sir. Okay.
My question is that you realize this is a flood zone, and if you've lived through the flood of what year was it, 96? It was horrendous. I know that I'm required to have flood insurance, and I'm sure you will as well. So my problem is that when I tried to put in a little extension on my driveway, they told me I had to have a particular amount of green zone. When I look at your paper that you have out, I don't see that you meet that requirement of green zone in this area with the parking. The other part of the question is.
Could I respond to that first? Because that would be part of this whole site plan review process we were talking about before, but that is exactly the kind of thing that comes up when we start to look into the zoning code and flood zone requirements. And that's how those drawings will change over time. So I don't want people to get too invested in what's in that packet for exactly that reason. Thank you.
The other part of the question is since there's going to be parking and cars coming in and out, and of course you want them to work, so they may look nice, they may look whatever. My bedroom faces your parking. Would you be willing to put in a line of trees or something to buffer the noise from all of that?
Absolutely, and we could put a fence if the lights shine in the direction that's, objectionable, but we absolutely would. Yes.
If you're gonna put those trees and stuff, could you possibly also have some sort of curfew, because my bedroom is also like some sort of curfew, like 10 o'clock, like you can still come in and you go as a tree, so like as far as like how much noise and parts of us. Yeah.
Could you barter up in the 15% to say 25%? I know we have, as she was saying, we do have an abundance of children who have needs, and having Racker have part of their, whether it's their daycare or their service providers, and the bottom floor here. I mean,
And
your
it'd be
PT,
fully
OT, this is the perfect gymnasium for that. I also work for Racker. And I'm not putting it in the plumber, and I work for Columbus City School District. However, we do meet that need, and I think it would meet both pieces.
Yeah, I actually was just talking to Chris this morning, and we're open to anything like that, any type of house like that. Yeah. The information they gave me about the need for the residential units is Racker currently supports 132 people that live independently or with their families in Portland County. Approximately 8 of those people currently live in substandard housing or housing that does not meet their accessibility needs, and they're looking for more adequate housing. Additionally, approximately 10 people have indicated that they would like to move out of their family home and into their own home. And it's important to know that all 10 people mentioned they want to continue to live in the Cleveland community. So that,
We do have, well, there's one house here on the other, but there's a waiting list.
that number can go up. If this is the sort of thing that we want to find out from the community, how can we best meet the needs in the community?
Racker was one of the places that was really interested in trying to work on that particular project. So that would have been our.
Maybe the Neil company did.
I think, was there somebody over here that had hand up for a while? Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I feel like I kind of want to apologize to us in the sense that clearly you kind of walked into a situation, and you had the photo up there, and I really believe you when you have community engagement baked into your process. Unfortunately, what you've done is being the only RFP, that raised the red flag right there. Why people aren't jumping on this opportunity. That you're walking into a community where community engagement has failed for years. Administrations have failed. I've been to several of these meetings that we're talking about, task force meetings. They have been embarrassing, okay, and frustrating and painful because they have been biased in favor of what people already wanted to do and did not engage the community. The community deserves the opportunity to decide for themselves if they can create two schools. Now, you looked up a piece of information which got my attention, because I live on a street that's now being consumed by student housing. Student population is going down to SUNY Portland that are out of control, illegal student housing. I would like to talk about working with your organization to help us set up a housing land trust so we can reclaim the amazing housing stock we already have, and then let the school be a school. Because we'll have people moving here who want to go to school.
email me, and we can discuss that. Yeah. Great. Thanks.
That was very well said. I appreciate everything. Just to clarify, so you guys are willing to, at least partially subsidize childcare, help, and effort facilities here?
Yes.
Structurally make it sound good.
Yes, there are that financial source that I mentioned, the community investment fund. We can apply. That's fair enough. Okay, I surrender. We can apply for that as it's in the same funding package where we apply for the funding for the house, and we've been very successful in getting that. That's how we've been able to do the childcare. Yes.
And the 1.1 million can then be used in addition.
As I understand it.
We would resurrect that, I'm sure.
And I just want to reiterate that it is very important for us to keep in touch with, I was on waiting list over here myself. I know that's not a rare thing. And then I ended up getting in CC3. That's because I had the ability to transfer. A lot of Portland women do not. This is a permanent location. There's families who do not have transportation or other needs that need childcare. If we have childcare, we go back to the workforce. That's part of the problem that I had. I can go back to work to take care of child.
We understand
Those
that.
mothers, those single mothers, how are they going to work if they don't have childcare?
That was one of the goals of putting childcare in here, with the idea of drawing people, because if our community had that resource, we could draw more people. A couple things I'm thinking about are, we have a lot of people in our little 4 square miles of the city of Portland who are aging in place and who can't really afford to take care of their houses. They don't want to move far away. They love Portland. They raise their kids here. Their friends are here. Their places of worship are here. This is their life, but we don't have a place for them. This would also be a place where retired people could apply to live if they so desire. And then that would open up housing stock in the city. That's one idea. Another is that when people come to work at the university, if they rent in town, they tend to put down roots, raise their kids, and stay in town. So that would be another great goal. And I'm afraid I'm the one who misled people because I made a flyer with my name at the bottom saying that this would not be for Section 8 and that it would not be for SUNY Cortland students. And that was because I must have misunderstood in your initial presentation, the small one that you did. So I apologize for that. My understanding was that there couldn't be somebody renting who was solely living on government money. They had to have some other source of income. Could you explain that?
Yeah, again, it's not legal for us to determine whether someone can live here or not based on where their income comes from. So if they're on SSI and they have Section 8 to help them with their rent, we can't say you're not eligible to live here. I will say you're not eligible to live here if you're a SUNY Portland student. So I'll clear that up. It can't, the low-income housing tax credit project does not allow just full-time students to live in those units.
Okay.
Mr. Dexter, you gave your hand up for a bit.
You said you retain taxes. Will there be any pilot program involved?
Well, we don't know yet because once we get awarded, we can find out what the building would be assessed at for its future use and then see whether that's supportable at the full assessed value or whether we would have to request a pilot. But we would be paying taxes. I can't tell you right now at what level because we haven't met with the assessor.
All the way in the back.
You had mentioned Cracker, you said you spoke with this, Cindy Gustavo.
Right.
I am aware of the staff. And I was wondering that, so we're, of course, we have individuals that do need living spaces and stuff like that, and they're capable of doing that. Have you had a deeper conversation with this Donovan? Because we do have a preschool program, we do have funding, we are a nonprofit, but I'm sure that we specialize with developmental disabilities, ADHD, autism, and all those things. Has there been a greater discussion? Because this is we wanted a daycare, we wanted some kind of child support. So going into discussing with Raptor about, providing housing for individuals as we have discussed as well as providing seniors, we could also provide and do that as a need coming for daycare and everything like that.
I haven't had that conversation with Chris, but I'm happy to.
But we have.
I'm working
Christina's been working with them, they just got $5 million, we got $2 million, and that was the conversation, what big things we could do.
Can you kind of repeat the question? We can't hear the question.
So the question was, has there any other thing else been worked on with Racker? Racker has a lot of needs and a lot of views on how that could work out further. So Racker just received a $5 million grant, we just received 2, versus in the same week. So we're continuing that dialogue outside of this, but that's not ready for presentation. I think somebody has their hand over there. All right? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I just wanted to say, I know this is not going to make it popular in this room, but we do have a housing crisis in our community, and the population that you're talking about serving is a population at greatest risk, and they don't have housing, they don't have stability, and they can't progress in any kind of successful way, whether it be treatment or education, etc. So I'm grateful to hear that you're talking also about a mixed use facility, like probably a childcare facility. But I also wanted to say, for those of you in this room, but also it's Lynn, correct?
Yes.
Yes, Lynn. And the mayor is well versed in this because I believe there is a housing committee in Portland that consists of key players in the housing program in agencies like Catholic Charities, Department of Social Services, landlords, and I'm sure there are others, Mayor Steve. And we meet regularly to talk about the housing crisis and the lack of decent, safe, affordable housing in our community, and also what the housing needs are, because, Steve Solomon is talking about housing for the seniors. What I'm thinking of is that there are projects for senior housing. Catholic Charities is looking at providing case management for a housing program that will be on, I believe, it's River Street in Portland. We've got the building structure going up on Tompkins Street. So there are these buildings going up, right? And I think that it would be useful to get together to take a look at what is in process. Like I know that there's going to be a structure, another mixed-use structure, serving the OPWDD population behind Tompkins Street, behind Tremax. Right? So, just to look at all of that and we're thinking about what to do with this building. Thank you.
Yes. So housing is being addressed. It is a huge problem. Daycare is a huge problem. Our children are important too. There is the housing. We have been working with a task force working together to do that. The state's actually coming down and running the way forward. Like for example, we have 5 disabled vets that need housing. We keep going in every territory that we need, and that's all being assessed and being worked on at the same time. To do that. Who is next? You mind if she goes? I promise you, she is talking. So go ahead.
Okay, if you're doing 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, how many people are you going to limit to a 2 bedroom apartment or a 1 bedroom? You're going to max people in those.
Yeah, I'm not in the property management department, so I don't want to say with certainty.
I can.
Roger does.
Yes, be a maximum of 4, and they would have to be the same sex children.
In a 2 bedroom.
In a 2-bedroom apartment.
And do you, periodically, make sure?
Yes. Actually, once people have moved in, we inspect after 60 days to find out whether we're going to have, to keep a closer eye on some tenants, or they need some supports from a caseworker, perhaps. But yes, and we then do an annual inspection every year.
Mr. Hart.
So I was just curious, Lynn, you kind of mentioned it, but I didn't hear much detail on it, about your sustainability plan for Parker, given that it's a historic building. How are you looking to, make this sustainable for the community? Like, are you going to be looking at, geothermal energy as opposed to natural gas heating? We've got an old heating system here. The AC system doesn't work as it should. Those sorts of things.
Yeah, so the state pretty much puts the onus on us to have an all electric utilities here in the building. So whatever utilities currently exist, mostly gas, those would have to be omitted from the process.
Right, and a green consultant will be part of the design team. So right at the beginning of the project, there will be multiple conversations about the most economical, yet most sustainable, and best for this building, and best for New York State.
Yeah, our focus is always going to be preserving the building and sustainability. Those are two key items that come along with it.
Does that also factor into like stormwater management to make sure that the neighbors aren't flooded if you're adding impermeable surfaces around?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That will all be evaluated as we go through the plan. It'll be essential on our part to make sure there's no additional areas of issues. Yeah, no problem.
There's been a question from here.
Hi, so speaking of City Portland people putting down roofs, hi, I work at City Portland. I had a follow-up question. You mentioned 2 bedrooms up to 4 people with kids that are opposite, not the same sex?
They have to be the same size.
Oh, okay. So if I happen to have been a boy and a son and a daughter, I'm just SOL?
Yes.
Correct.
Cool. So just wanted to make sure we were clarifying that kind of discrimination. Follow-up questions. Has the actual cost of the renovations so far been done post-pandemic crisis? Because last I heard, the cost analysis was done pretty early on in the pandemic when we were hitting kind of the highest prices for a lot of things. Has that been redone? If not, why not? And when can we expect this?
It was post-pandemic.
When is that?
It was post-pandemic, and the second Parker Task Force.
2021, I would not consider post-pandemic for building materials. Do we have anything within the past
It was
year?
2022.
We don't have anything
Our proposal that we submitted was post-pandemic.
Okay.
So all the numbers are up to date. We have no concern over the number that we provided. We've been doing this for 40, hate to admit it, we've been doing this for over 30 years. I'm a SUNY Cortland graduate myself. So I'm excited that we can hopefully collaborate together. That's why we're here. We understand the challenges. We can't make everyone happy, but we're trying to figure out a pathway
To
that makes
clarify,
sense for everyone.
I'm talking about the proposal that was shot down to turn this into daycare
It
originally.
wasn't shot down,
Wherein-
the 2 entities withdrew.
Wherein it was put in at a very high price that the YW and Capco wouldn't be able to. Has that been reassessed so that they can get reasonable, up-to-date numbers to see if they would be able to do that?
YWCA and Capco withdrew from that proposal, and they have not.
Did they withdraw with current numbers post 1 year after? Like, it doesn't seem like they can make a good decision. They're only working with old data.
But then they would have to get that reassessment.
Then the next question about income limiting. So one of my concerns about having income limiting is that what about the parents that want to try and get out of that? How are you going to try and help them go from the rent suppressed prices into something where they can actually go out and not be dependent on this building and the subsidized rents here, and they can go out into the community and get that flow? What is your plan to help people transition out of this?
Well, we don't employ social workers, so we don't help people in that sense in terms of developing job skills or anything like that. However, if they're currently paying 50% of their income toward rent, and they move in here and are paying 30% of their income toward rent, they are advantaged in that way, and they could use that funding for education, childcare, anything, medicine, things, food, things that they are currently burdened by.
But there's no way, you have no plan to help people actually get prosperous enough to escape needing discount rent.
By virtue of moving in here, they already have more disposable income if they were cost burdened before they moved in here. So I'm not sure I'm understanding. We're not forcing anyone to live here or stay here, but it will allow people to save more money if they live here, if they're low income people.
But once they reach a certain income threshold, won't they be booted out?
Yeah,
No,
that's
they
also
will
my
not.
concern.
No, they will not.
So if I was earning $10,000 a year when I moved in, or 20 or whatever, the lowest number, but then started earning 100,000, for instance.
Well, if you earn 100,000.
Well, but I'm just saying, so like, you would boot somebody out if they surpass.
We have a property management department who knows these regulations in and out. I'm in the real estate development department, so I cannot answer these
Do they act for
questions.
tax returns? What do they do?
Yes, they do income certifications annually, they get their tax returns, and they have, I believe, check stubs from payments if they don't have a tax return. But I'm not an expert in that area, so I don't want to go down that path.
Okay. I think it's easy to see that I'm for this project. I want to thank you for it. You've done what you can about childcare. These people that are concerned about childcare, I would suggest that they contact the YWCA and CAPCO to encourage them to discuss the options available through this company. That's number one. We're asking multiple questions, so give me a couple more. Number two, do you have a school conversion in Ithaca that we could come see?
Yes.
Okay, I will talk to the mayor about making arrangements. You know, everybody's concerned about what the school is gonna look like, everything else. If we come over to Ithaca at some night, at your convenience, or our convenience, and take a look at what you've done, I think that would help us quite a bit. My last question, I promise you, Mayor, my last question is, you know how many low-income and senior citizens on a fixed budget there are in the city of Portland? We've got to get this building on the tax rolls. There's too many buildings that are tax exempt in the city of Portland. You're doing us a huge favor. When I leave, I'm going to go and up one of you.
I would like to recognize this lady over here who's been waiting a long time.
This is something similar to the lady with the red hair.
Okay.
Where in Cortland can you get a 3-bedroom apartment on a low income? Nowhere. You got a boy that's 10 and a girl that's 7 sleeping in a bedroom together, and the mother is sleeping in her own room. That ain't gonna fly much longer. And this lady is on Section 8. She needs a 3-bedroom apartment. And there are none. So what's the city gonna do for people like that?
Guess we'll take one.
Well, if I could say, as part of our community engagement, that's information that we want to know. So if we should reduce the number of studios and put some 3 bedrooms in, we can certainly do that.
How about reducing some of the student housing? We got plenty of them.
I think we all agree to that.
Should this become a goal for this building, meeting the needs of childcare and residents, how would you meet the needs of both populations? Citywide, some separation?
Yep, so there'd be completely separate entrances. The residential will have an intercom, it'll be a locked building with an intercom so that you can reach them if you're coming to visit and you don't live here, you don't have your own key. You would buzz the person you're coming to visit and they will have to buzz you in. The childcare, there's also going to be security cameras on the entire site, so covering both the childcare if you have one and the residential area, exterior areas, back of the building, that whole thing, interior areas. The childcare would have its own separate entrances, its own separate systems, its own separate keys. We've done fobs sometimes. If people prefer that to the hard key, then you can just deactivate fobs immediately if there's a security concern. So that works well for childcares. But those are options. Sure. Yes.
I was just looking up on the housing and gender and same sex and all that. It actually reads right here that it's discriminating against any gender,
anybody that has multiple families, it says right here that housing discrimination is illegal in nearly all housing, including private housing, public housing, and housing receiving from federal funding.
The number of people you can have in a unit is a code issue. It's not a, we're selecting this family instead of that family.
You know, I'm talking about same sex of the children.
There's building code issues and there's state housing community renewal codes. So you can't discriminate against them if they have children, or whether they're same-sex children or two different.
Even gender didn't matter.
But you can not discriminate. You can. They don't say who can go into the bedrooms. It's the state code.
Well, I just looked it up.
It's a limit on the number of people.
Yeah, does it say a boy and a girl can share the same bedroom in
Not
that code?
No, it's the same, but for same sex. I'm saying that it's discriminating because it's not fair to a woman that has a boy and a girl.
That's why they were gathering more information from the community, to your point, that if somebody needed a 3-bedroom because they had a bedroom for the boy, that would.
Yeah, these are all great questions. Again, the whole purpose of this, guys, is just for all of us to sit in the room together and throw nice, soft stones at each other, right? Like dirt stones, basically, and just collaborate. And that's what this is all about. We're here just trying to work with everybody. We go into a lot of municipalities. We run into a lot of positive, a lot of negative, but at the end of the day, we're really hoping to work with you guys all into the community.
Sir.
There's a number of homeowners in this area, and I'm one of them. What's this, where you gone into these areas, what's that done to the home valuation?
Did everybody hear that? So the question is, for homeowners in the area of buildings that they rehab, what does it do for the property values of those adjacent homes in the area?
There has not been substantial impact in either direction. So if there's a vacant building, you would assume that repurposing it might raise values in the area. If you have a certain mindset, you might assume that if people with low incomes move into your area, it will depress values. That has not been the case, and it's been studied multiple times that affordable housing does not, high quality affordable housing does not impact surrounding property values substantially in either direction.
Have a lot of your renovations that you've done though been in this kind of a neighborhood?
Good question.
Or
So-
have they been spread out?
Can
There's
I
a lot of
repeat that?
family homes and young children. You've got the park across the street.
Did you guys hear that? So she's asking, have a lot of these projects that they've done been in similar type communities? Because there's the park across the street, there's a lot of single-family housing around here. Is that accurate?
Yes. And one more thing, and I don't want anybody to hate me, but oftentimes, I know, like a single mom who lives in Section 8 housing, and she hates it because there's constant drugs, there's alcohol, there's fights. You know, I mean,
Sure.
people need housing, I know that, but how do you deal with that, with these apartments, if there's those kind of situations?
Yeah, people get evicted. So if people have lease violations where they're causing, there's fighting, if there's, damage to the building, if there's,
Selling
drug
drugs.
trafficking, well, that's obviously illegal. So not only would you get evicted, you would get reported to the police.
Can you actually get evicted anyhow?
It's very hard to, it's very hard.
It also depends on your lease, and they also have a process for people. They also have a process for people who are struggling with each other. We have 3 more questions, and I don't think you've asked one yet, have you? Yeah, I'm going to you, I'm sorry. would you be willing to keep at least one of them?
Yes.
And do your project?
So our projects have to have a playground for the people who live there, but we can also have a public playground if that's what the community would like to do. So we're open for the conversation.
Yes. I know it's a little kind of a game, but when you walk out the store and go to the bathroom, and say for the girls, you look up and look at that fence right there, that's in the backyard. Do you guys have a plan for how to support those communities that are right here while during that construction process? My grandpa was.
So what we know from a construction standpoint, to answer your question earlier, myself personally, we've done a ton of projects similar to this. I did the one particular example of my previous life. I did the Holly High School project, which won a ton of awards, which was in a neighborhood very similar to this, where we actively collaborated with the neighborhood. We got a lot of insight from neighbors, great neighbors like yourselves. To answer your question, prior to construction, what our company typically does from a construction standpoint, we'll have a meeting with the neighborhood and just to understand, sort of similar to this, to understand the needs. So we won't progress until we come up with a plan. We'll have a safety plan, a complete construction plan that we'll get insight from you guys, and then we'll tell you typically what's normally done. And we won't commence work until we're all on the same page.
But I will say, to be perfectly honest, you cannot do a construction project and not make any noise. So, there will be noise, it will be disruptive, and we'll try to keep it to the absolute minimum. But I have to be honest with you, it can be disruptive if you're living right next door to a construction site.
And typically there is a construction fence,
Yeah.
full perimeter of the site with a gate in and out that's secured at the end of the day to try to keep everything contained within the site. And you're very fortunate that there's an existing building here.
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah, if it's brand new construction, it's the noisiest thing in the world.
to Roger's point, we have an existing building here, so for the most part, 90% of the work is going to be within the cavity of the building itself. So you're going to hear minimal noise as opposed to where it's new construction.
So, you were next, I believe.
So I was just speaking to like all the Section 8 stuff and the eviction processes. It is very difficult. I work for the Thornton Housing Authority. I'm the executive director. It's incredibly difficult to evict someone, no matter how tight your lease is, and no matter what they've done, drugs included. I sit in court every week for the same people. So, and I'm not trying to, go against anything you do. I'm just saying it is extremely difficult. I mean, we've been years trying to get people out.
We
but-
haven't had.
Speak to those concerns.
Sure. I mean, it is, there's a lot of tenant protections in place, I think for good reason, but I think that they can be excessive in many cases. And we find the same thing, that it takes us longer to get somebody out than we want, but we have been successful. And so a project that we opened recently, Foundry's Way, which was the renovation of the school, we had, we moved 75 people in there. We had one household that was a real problem and clearly needs to be evicted. It's been 2 months, but they have now been served, and so they will be leaving. So I think that's, yeah. So we do have a good lawyer. I don't know if that's helpful in the process or what, but we've been successful.
And along with that, what is your vetting process for the residents that would move in? What does that look like?
Again, because I'm not in property management, I can't speak to the exact things that they look at, but I know that their criteria are they obviously have to be income qualified, they have to be able to pay their share of the rent. They do look at credit history, but they can't take that, they can't automatically disqualify somebody on the basis of credit. They can raise questions about it. They do look at their criminal background history. We can't, as I said, automatically disqualify people for criminal history other than methamphetamine production and sex offender status. But we are allowed to look individually at each person's history. If we feel that they are not going to have a high likelihood of success, we do not have to allow them to lease again.
It's basically the same as us. Now, do you do a national search for like fingerprinting and like that?
That again, I don't, because I'm not in property management. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question, but we can put it on the responses.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just a comment, with the eviction process,
a resident of the Parker District. I moved here about 20 years ago, raised two young boys that graduated from Parker School. And in recent years, I wouldn't want to allow my boys to walk to the park as they did when they were young. We recently oftentimes have people break into cars on our street on Lebanon Drive. Just this past year, we had an unlicensed driver under the influence of drugs park a stolen vehicle in our front yard. These are unprecedented times, and my fear with somebody tied up in an addiction that this is going to get heightened more than it is already. So that was just a comment that I put out there. My question is, there is a housing crisis, I will acknowledge that, but not only for the low-income community. So my son that did graduate from Parker went on to graduate from college. His girlfriend also graduated from college, and they're two young professionals that would not meet your income guidelines. They looked for 3 years for an affordable apartment. I didn't say affordable, I mean, they were willing to pay up to $2,000 a month rent, could not find it, there was nothing. They lived in my basement until now they actually bought a house on Madison, they're also in this district. But there's a need for housing at all income levels, so when you speak to, is there availability of higher income limit housing?
Well, we can include within our developments incomes up to 90 and 100% of the area median income, but we have to establish the amount of need. The market study that I was talking about previously has to show that there's sufficient support for, at those levels. But we can include higher income units in our projects. And we do the Founders Way project, again, it has incomes ranging from 30% to 100% of area median income in that project. So it's possible.
So she's an RN at St. Joseph's Hospital. She's not going to meet your income guidelines. These also professionals, two working professionals, but there's no housing out there for them.
I like the idea of taking the streets back and putting them there.
Yeah. So, housing services does home repair, helps people get home repair. Would you be willing to do that in our community?
Yes, of course. Yep.
And do you still rehab old houses?
We don't really do the house acquisition and rehab so much anymore, but it's primarily a staffing issue that we have. We haven't been able to find people, in-house to handle that program, but it's not impossible. I mean, because Portland's in our service area, all of our programs are available to people who live in Portland.
Yeah. They also do, because 20 years ago, my family moved here, and I had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. We could not find a place to rent. They wanted to charge us per person for a family of 4, because everybody was after the student dollars. And we were looking in Ithaca too, but we couldn't afford Ithaca. If we're gonna, afford Portland. And we took their first-time home buyers program, and that was really helpful. We learned a lot. So I just, I've known about this company for a long time, and I think that they could do other great things in our community. So that's good to know.
All right, last call. Anybody else have anything else? One more question. One more question.
She hasn't asked a question. She hasn't asked a question.
So I heard a lot about what you do. I heard a lot about where we are as a community. But what I didn't hear was the timeline. I heard 18 months, basically 2025, that this could come to fruition. But I didn't hear how, because I knew how the school lost the school. And I understand the process of the vote then. What's the city's responsibility in the sense of now releasing the building and what's that to the community? Hang on. So in the second part, I get that. So the second part that I'm asking is, so what's the city's timeline to meet their timeline? Because they're not here without doing their homework. They've done their homework. So what's our work that has to be done? And what are we talking timeline now? Because what I heard 18 months from now, by the way, is 2025. Right? So what is the timeline that we're discussing now? Because like you said, we can meet, we can have conversations.
Right.
Right? But what is the timeline as we speak right now?
My understanding is that this building, and that's going to be more information
put it on a public hearing. Based on this presentation, it'll be up to the council to decide whether or not to put it on a public hearing at our next session, which will be the first of the following month. And the first meeting in July, we have that meeting, and then that would be the public hearing to address if this is the best move. At that point, then we go into negotiations with them to say when the timeline is they start taking over, and they wouldn't go on the tax rolls as you heard. Their funding would be tax rolls after, that's part of that whole part of it. But then we start that whole process of negotiation to do that. But my bet here for negotiation is that they're going to assume the responsibility of the building until that point to get that off our backs.
We ask that you push it forward as fast as you can.
So, did that answer your question? Did that answer your question?
There's a question over here. She's been waiting a long time.
Yes, I just want to say, I do have very mixed feelings. I just wanted to say that I do have very mixed feelings. My husband and I moved here 18 years ago, decided to raise our family here. I loved it. We live on Halbert Street. Our property borders, it goes right up to the point where the small playground is. It's been great. When it was Parker Elementary School, we weren't there, so when we get home from work, nobody was really there. The days that I had off, I'm a school teacher in Marathon, the days that I had off when the kids were there, it was wonderful to see them, hear them out there playing. Since the school is closed, which was very bittersweet, I know, for a number of people, it was also bittersweet for us because Parker School was a great neighbor to have. I've had to contact the police frequently, especially in the summer, fall months. I walked into what I think are drug deals, people vaping, teenagers having sex on the play set, things like that. So I don't want the building to sit vacant because I don't want to have to continue dealing with issues like that.
Yeah.
However, I am concerned, our neighborhood, since we moved in 18 years ago, every time a house goes up for sale, student housing or low-income apartments. I hate it. It's noisy. Again, I have to call the cops all the time. I worry that now instead of having handfuls of neighbors who are often very transient, so we're getting to know new people all the time, that now I'm going to have 40 to 50 new neighbors that I'm going to have to also be policing in a way. So I have mixed feelings about it. I don't want the building to sit vacant and fall apart, but I do want to make sure that whatever plan is put in place, that it continues to be maintained for those 50 years. And I hear people saying, oh, this will open up new housing as people move into these apartments. I'm worried because right now there are empty buildings that are falling apart, or student housing and low-income housing in our area. The houses are dilapidated, the porches are falling off. We have these great new garbage containers, which thank you, by the way. I love it. However, some people still have piles of trash on their porches. I want to make sure that our neighborhoods are clean. I don't want to be embarrassed to have people come to my house and have to drive through some of the neighborhoods that are in our area now to get there. I want the neighborhoods that we had 18 years ago when I moved in. If an apartment can go into this school building and those apartments can be well maintained, and more importantly, the people that are in the apartments can be managed and handled and made sure that they're following the rules of our neighborhood, then I'm all for it. But I just want to make sure that by following through with this project, we don't create other issues, because I notice that things often are a domino effect. So I just hope that there's not just tunnel vision, let's get something into the building, let's also make sure that everything else is thought about so that we can have a safe neighborhood for our kids.
I can speak from all of us because we're all partners here and we want you guys to be our partners. Is that the intent of this project is it's not our project. Potentially, it's all of our project. And we want to make you guys proud. If this comes to fruition, there's a ribbon cutting at the end, and we want you guys to be excited about it. Again, this is your project, and we want to.
How is it our project and it's servicing other counties too?
Well, we can't, again, going back to the point here, we can't make, we can't achieve.
And you don't live in
from
Portland
everywhere.
County, you don't have homes here. You live elsewhere. Do you really care about our community?
But we certainly can, for sure.
Okay. What about our children's parents?
I just want to say, I grew up in a school here, moved away for a long time, I came back 10 years ago, I moved back to the States, our family is crazy. Nobody did a background check on me when I bought my house, because I made them like my house, and they didn't get back, so there's no way.
Good point. And just to go real quick back to your concerns, one of the things that we talked about, and it's still got to be worked out, is a special use permit for this property. So into that, that's a revocable thing. So if it becomes a blighted property, it becomes a problem, it is a revocable thing. And we have been working for, on the other properties that we have in the community to do the same, to put them up to the next level of standards. We're trying to get that code and how hold these student housing and low-income renters and other ones accountable. And we have been able to get many of those abandoned properties back on the tax rolls with single-family people in them, by the way. So I think we're up to 30 of them. So that's been a good thing as well.
Yes, I would just like to echo her feelings. Being one of your longest residents, I'm not in Portland. I didn't grow up in Portland. I wasn't born here, but I've been here for 35 years. And I've watched this neighborhood probably in the past 7 or 8 years really start to deteriorate. I think I know most of the cops by name now, and they're wonderful, by the way. They're very helpful, but we shouldn't need that. About 3 years ago, I was sitting in my home and the window was open and there was this really awful smell. I'm like, what is that? And my neighbor told me it was mess. Right around the corner was a mess house. And they couldn't evict us. They were in there for 3 years. And right next door was owned by a police officer. So it's a big concern. This isn't Ithaca. The people here, moving in here, it's not Ithaca. I mean, we used to get letters in our taxes telling us that 33% of our taxes pay for Medicaid. So that's the clientele. And I think that what you guys have done is fabulous. They're beautiful places, but the concern is the residents. You have no control over that, and that's the biggest concern.
Katie, you mentioned that the budget was $100,000 to keep this open every year. When we go to the city clerk, who has that actually down on paper? Line item by line item.
We'll provide it in the online compensation table line item. It's largely fire inspections, we have a security system, but the biggest portion is the utilities.
So that'll be all posted on that website. That's Lisa Henry, by the way, our finance and administrative director, starting the 15th. So thank you for coming, Lisa. Christine.
Do you ever do projects where there are condominiums in essence that people can buy the unit or rent to own so that they can go towards ownership of their property? Whether they want to run this like that. We have, I think, that would address some of the concerns that people are having.
The problem is that for purchase homes are much less subsidized by the state in terms of the financing stack
questions that have been asked tonight will be dictated and the answers will be posted as well, not just the questions that get answered.
But answers.
Okay. And then is there a way to submit questions online to add to that over the next
Yeah, you can contact any person, my office or anybody on the email, submit them, we'll add that to you.
Thanks, John.
Okay?
Feel free to stick around and ask more questions, but thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming. I'm Wayne Stetton. I'm an alderman from Ward 1. Why am I not workforce housing. That's better. What they're talking about. But I don't want to. They don't think anyone's out. That makes decisions. No. And I promise that if you remember when I ran, personally saw my picture, my name, and it said it's not about the party. But I'm about it. I promise no matter what you do, vote for the I made some votes where I voted and I thought in my head, no, but Chap said this is what we want, so I got that. Oh, you want to do a good job of that? Yes, we did. Wonderful. Find another way.
Like I said when they started.
Whew.